Welcome to Mom's Life Made Simple, the podcast for moms who want to go from chaos to calm, from overwhelmed to organized, and to find balance between family responsibilities and personal growth. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen. Let's make mom life simple. Hey, you guys, thanks for being here today. I'm so glad that you are joining me for today's episode all about mobilization. Now, mobilization is a word to me that just really means taking action. It means forward movement. It means getting going. And I love this word because so often we learn things, we know things, we feel like, oh, that's something I need to do. And then we kind of sit on that and we don't move forward and we don't take action. And mobilization is just the beginning of getting moving and getting going. And so to me, mobilization really has a lot to do. And what we're going to talk about today is habits. It has a lot to do with the little tiny actions that we take day after day after day. So it's not that we have to get mobilized and get motivated to do this huge thing. It doesn't take a lot of motivation because what we're actually doing are small, tiny things repeated consistently. I really learned the value of this for myself when I was a young mom and I was really stressed out. I had 4 kids in 6 years. I just felt stressed and overwhelmed all the time. My husband worked full time away from home, and by the time he would come home, I was just done. I would just want to hand him the kids and go. But of course, that's the time when I'm trying to make dinner and everyone's crying, and it was just kind of a mess. And I noticed that I was being less pleasant with my husband. I was not feeling very happy. I was impatient with the kids. It just was kind of a perfect storm of me not feeling my best and not living my best. And I went and visited a doctor when I started to have some physical symptoms, and he ran a bunch of tests. He did all my blood work, and he said, "Your problem is that you're stressed. You have too much cortisol." It was really high, and cortisol is our stress hormone. And so my body was saying, "You are stressed out, calm down." And he told me I needed to find a way to take care of myself and to have less stress. And I didn't know how to do that. The 4 kids were still there. I still had a lot of demands on my time. And so that's when I started a morning routine. And you'll hear me, or if you've been following me for a while, you've heard me before talk about morning routine. I started with a morning routine of just practicing yoga every morning and having a little bit of time to myself. And it started off as a pretty small thing, 20 minutes at the most, on some days, even less. And this became a habit that I've kept up for about the last 10 years. And it was just a little thing. But here's why I bring this up. I was very stressed at that time. I was very overwhelmed and I needed self-care, but it wasn't enough to just, go take a weekend away. Not that that was even really feasible at that time anyway, but it wasn't enough to just go do one big thing. I needed something consistent. And in order for it to be consistent, it needed to be doable. It needed to be repeatable. It needed to be small enough that it could happen over and over and over. Sometimes we hear, the doctor or whoever it is, whatever the catalyst is for you, we feel like, okay, I need to do something for self-care, for my health, for, my business, whatever it is. And we think, I must do this big thing, when the opposite is true. You need to do a little thing and then you need to repeat it. So let's talk a little bit about habits. Why are habits important? I have 3 reasons why habits matter. So number 1, habits make things easier. When you have something that's part of your routine and it is a habit, it becomes easy to do. So Dr. Christine Carter says, habits take the effort out of our daily tasks. They are the ultimate form of ease. We do what needs to be done without having to will ourselves to do it. So think about that. What that means is that habits we don't have to have that inner debate. We don't have to question, should I do this right now? Do I really have time to go and do yoga? We don't have any of those inner questions that lead to decision fatigue. We're not making a decision. The decision has already been made. We don't have to decide again, or as she says, we don't have to will ourselves to do it. There's no process of figuring out. Our habits, we repeat the same thing we did yesterday, the same thing in the same way, and they make it effortless. Okay, number 2 reason why habits matter is consistency. I have a quote from David A. Bednar. This is kind of long, but it tells a beautiful story, and it really encapsulates the power of consistency. He says, "In my office is a beautiful painting of a wheat field. The painting is a vast collection of individual brushstrokes, none of which in isolation is very interesting or impressive. In fact, if you stand close to the canvas, all you can see is a mass of seemingly unrelated and unattractive streaks of yellow and gold and brown paint. However, as you gradually move away from the canvas, all of the individual brushstrokes combine together and produce a magnificent landscape of a wheat field. Many ordinary individual brushstrokes work together to create a captivating and beautiful painting. Each individual habit is a brushstroke on the canvas of our souls. No one event may appear to be very impressive or memorable, but just as the yellow and gold and brown strokes of paint complement each other and produce an impressive masterpiece, so our consistency in doing seemingly small things can lead to significant results." End quote. Okay, I love that visualization. We can all picture whether it's his painting of a wheat field or another painting that you've seen with tiny individual brushstrokes. It isn't the one brushstroke that makes the painting. It's the combination of stroke after stroke after stroke. And that is the power of habits. Day after day after day, the consistency is what matters. And I'll share another example of that as we go along. Tony Robbins quote, he says, "It's not what we do once in a while that shapes our lives, it's what we do consistently." And Jim Quick says, "If you're persistent, you get to obtain it. If you're consistent, you get to keep it." I think that's something cool to think about too, because sometimes, maybe you've done this before, you have a goal to, let's say, lose weight. I use that example a lot because it's something that maybe a lot of us have experienced. We want to lose weight and we set this goal. Okay, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by such and such a date. And if you're persistent, if you do the things you set out to do, you'll reach your goal. Now, what happens after that? You've reached your goal, then what? Jim Quick says, if you're consistent, you get to keep it. The things that we want in our lives, whether they're related to our physical health or, our financial health or whatever it is, we have to be consistent in order to keep the thing that we've obtained. That means we have to have good habits in place. We have to keep those good habits long after we've reached our goal. And that's a powerful thing. That's why habits really matter. And we can't just do these short-term sprints to the end goal and then be done. Our lives continue to change. They continue to shift. And the good habits are what keeps us on the path that we want to be on. Okay, number 3 reason why habits matter. Habits run the show. Another Jim Quick quote. He says, "First, you create your habits, then your habits create you." And that's really cool. So habits run the show. What does he mean by this? First, you create your habits, then your habits create you. Well, what that means is first you decide. You have this moment of choice. You get to be the creator of what habits you want in your life. But your habits create your life. The things that you do day after day determine the type of life that you have. And here's the example that I mentioned earlier. We want to intentionally choose our habits. There's a great example in the book, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And in this book, he talks about 3 friends. They're 3 guys. They're all about the same age. They're in their 20s. They're all married. They all have jobs. And they're living pretty similar lives. They're going to work. They're spending time with their wives. They're eating. They're just living life pretty similarly. Well, they decide to kind of veer off. One keeps kind of doing the status quo, doing what he's done. And one decides, you know what? I want to do things a little bit differently. I want to really have a good relationship with my wife. And so every night I'm going to make sure to, set aside my phone and spend time with her. I want to get ahead in my job. So on the way to work, I'm going to listen to podcasts that help me learn skills that will help further my education. And before I go to work, I'm going to exercise every morning. There's a few other examples he gives. He cleans up his eating, he does a few different things. That's man number one. Man number two, we already talked about, sticks to what he was doing. Man number three, things kind of fall apart. He doesn't like his job and he complains about his job. He decides that because he doesn't like his job, he's going to have ice cream every day when he gets home from work. And because he's already had a rotten day, he is going to go on his phone and gets really involved with online gaming. By the way, this is not the exact example. If you've read The Compound Effect, I'm adding in my own spin here. But the point of this example is this. In about a year of these men, one who didn't change, one who kind of changed for the worse, and one who kind of changed for the better, nothing looks different. They've been doing they're small things, they're tiny habits. They've been doing those day after day after day for a year, and you can barely see a difference. The man who's exercising, he feels better. His wife feels better about their relationship. There's a better feeling, but from the outside, you can't really see any difference. In 5 years, you start to see a little bit of a difference. You can see a difference in their physicality, right? In 5 years, this man number three who's having ice cream every night, he's gotten a little rounder. The man who kind of stuck to what he was doing, he does what most of us do. He just got a little older. He's feeling a little more run down. And this man who created new habits is feeling pretty good. And it's starting to show in their bodies. After 10 years, sad news, man number three got a divorce. He wasn't putting any time into his relationship. He got fired from his job. Man number one has a new job at a great company, and he has risen through the ranks and is doing management and doing all these things. And man number two has kind of, stayed in a similar job, and his relationship is not great, but they're sticking with it. The point of this example, the point of this story is this. When we have habits, we don't see right away their effects. And so sometimes, even a year into it, we can think, man, I've been exercising for a year and yeah, I feel better, but I don't really see the results that I want to see. We don't always see the results of habits right away. Habits are playing the long game. Habits are what we do to create the life that we want to have. They're all about the compound effect. They're all about what's going to happen in 5 years and in 10 years. And it can be really hard to take that long view, but this is why intentionally creating habits that are so important, that serve us, that create the life we want to have, that's why it matters. We have to intentionally, purposefully choose the habits that we want so that we will have the life that we want. It's very easy to just go along, not really, one day of ice cream or one day of going on your phone doesn't really matter that much. It's probably okay, right? It's the things that we do day after day after day that are going to create the difference. And so you are creating your life with your small daily choices. So it's important to take a step back and look at what you're doing. Are your choices today creating the life that you want to have in 5 years, in 10 years? And if they're not, what simple and tiny changes can you make right now? That's the idea of mobilization. Right now, look at something that you're doing. What is one little thing that you could change? Make a decision to change it. Start to do it. You create a habit, repeat it day after day after day. So this is the idea of how habits can really serve us in the long term. So if you enjoyed this episode, I would love it if you would leave me a review and share it with a friend. I appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening to Mom's Life Made Simple. Need some help making your mom life simple? I offer group coaching programs using my 4-step method called the MOMS method. This is a process of manifestation, organization, mobilization, and simplification that will give you the balance, progress, and joy you're looking for. Visit ChanelNielsenCoaching.com or find me on Instagram or Facebook at Chanel Nielsen Coaching. I love to hear from you. Reach out with your questions, your feedback, and let me know how I can help make your mom life simple.